Hey, this is Genein, and I am here with your Thursday Diamond Mentor moment. Today, we're going to talk about, can being a leader actually lower your ability to think creatively? Have you ever thought about that? So, I am so honored just to remind you that we have our 7 gems of intercultural creativity, which is needed for a new era. So, let's go back to our topic. Can being a leader actually lower your creative thinking? Now, hopefully this hasn't happened to you, but a lot of us, you've experienced like a bad boss, someone who just derails the culture of creativity, curiosity, doesn't make it a safe psychological space to connect and to create and to work. Hopefully this has not happened to you, but leadership can break creative thinking. We know this. But even if you're a good leader, does being in a power position actually affect your ability to think creatively? Now, before I can continue going on, I want to redefine creativity. When I mean that, I don't necessarily mean artistry, even though artistry is a part of creativity. When I talk about intercultural creativity, I talk about the process of problem finding and problem solving with value, relevance, and novelty. And when you insert the intercultural part, you're doing this with people from different cultural backgrounds. So if you understand the true meaning of creativity, you'll understand that it rests on very important cognitive skills. Creativity rests upon, your mindset, but your openness to experience. This is a huge indicator of people who are highly creative thinkers. It also rests upon curiosity. You need to have the ability, the skill, and the internal drive to be curious about your situations, curious about other people. And the third element among many that creativity rests upon is your ability to shift perspectives. And so when I was looking at this and going into the work of Dr. Michael Platt, he talked about how actually being in a position of power or being in a leadership position can actually lower your ability to think creatively. And here's what he said from his book, The Leader's Brain. He said, studies of both humans and monkeys show that the more power, real or perceived, you have, the less attention you pay to others, especially those of lower status. Being or believing you are of higher status than someone else turns down the activity in your social brain network. This makes you less attentive and thereby less likely to take on the perspective of others. This makes it difficult to understand their goals and their intentions and makes it more challenging to cooperate. It can also cause you to miss signals and other forms of information that are important for successful interactions. So if you look at the 7 gems of intercultural creativity, the second gem is cultural observation and environmental observation. So as you increase in power and in title and in leadership positions, unless you're intentional, these skills of observations actually can lessen because now you don't have that reason, that motivation to be observant because you are in higher position. So keeping that in your mind. And this is why I love talking about this, because intercultural creativity is a needed skill, especially for leaders who want these cohesive teams that know how to get together and create well. It is a skill, and the definition for this says the capacity to shift perspective. Intercultural competence is the capacity to shift perspective. And when you're able to be aware of these cultural commonalities and similarities and the nuances and the complexity, and when you can shift perspective and adapt, that makes you in position to be a great leader. But you have to be aware of this element. Another part that Dr. Platt brings up, he says that influential leaders come from more diverse backgrounds, diverse countries, counties, cities. They put themselves in diverse experiences. This helps them to see easily things from the perspective of others. So once again, this is a skill, and the skill is called intercultural competence. And for what I'm proposing, intercultural creativity. Leaders are intentional about making sure this skill stays strong as they're gaining more power and more position. When I introduce this concept, I introduce it as a developmental concept, or it is presented as a developmental concept. For leaders to continue their intercultural development, no matter what orientation they are in, is important as they develop the structure of their team. There's a wonderful book that I love called Ego is the Enemy, and I want to retitle it, or at least use it as a chapter title in one of my books, called Ego is the Enemy of Your Curiosity and Your Creativity. So a word of advice to those of you who are leaders, who are wanting to be leaders, and who know that your position of power and of authority is important, and it trickles down, that mindset trickles down to the rest of your team. Remember to always be curious, always be able to sit with people from different levels to get their perspective, to get their view on things, and always be able to make sure people have a voice. Don't be the bad boss. Don't be the one that is so high up above that you can't connect with multiple levels. There's a wonderful show out there that I love. I don't even know if it's on the air, but it was Undercover Boss, where the CEO or the C-suite team member went undercover, had full makeup, and went to go work at a front level position in their organization. Without fail, the CEO always came back with, oh, I never knew this was going on, and I never saw that was happening. In my book, The 16 Diamond Tools of Highly Creative Thinkers, I talk about this aspect. It's one of the diamond tools, and I call it the birds, the bears, and the bugs, meaning they take the same space, they're in the same space vertically, but they're at different positions on top of each other. So the birds are up here, the bears are on the ground floor, and the bugs are really, really on the ground floor, but they're in the same space. So they have three completely different perspectives of that area. And so to be a great leader, you want to make sure you have connections to multiple perspectives at multiple levels of your organization. And that you have to take initiative. You want to be the boss with your team and connected to your team. So can being in a position of power lower your creativity? Yes. If you don't work on your intercultural competence, if you don't take the extra time to perspective shift, to get the viewpoint of your team members and other people outside of your team and your clients and people even above you and people on the edges, the lines of intersections within your discipline. And also, like my good friend Brian Paradis says, who wrote this fabulous book, check it out. It's in the notes below. If you don't lead with imagination. So knowing that your imagination is powerful, and it can get even more powerful as you continue to make connections, no matter how much power and position and authority you have. So that is my Diamond Mentor Moment advice tip for today. And don't forget, the 7 gems of intercultural creativity will be out later this year. I'm so excited to share the insights on how you can improve your intercultural creativity within your organizations. If you wanted to go check out my son's book that we are writing together to give people a quick tip and a fun tip on how to make sure the creativity in your children is being developed and not squashed, you can go check that out on any of our social media pages. He has his own social media pages on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter at thecreativekid_SL. And I look forward to seeing you next time. So don't forget to have a wonderful interculturally creative day. See you next time. Bye-bye.